When the Hartwell Foundation's annual fellowship was announced, my family assumed it went to my brilliant brother, just like everything else. They'd spent weeks planning his celebration dinner, patting him on the back before he'd even received the letter. But the envelope that arrived at my door told a different story, one that would unravel years of being invisible in my own family and reveal who had truly seen my worth all along. Subscribe to our channel for real stories of overlooked daughters, hidden achievements, and the moment everything changes. My name is Claire Hartwell, and for 28 years, I've been the footnote in my family's story. The morning the fellowship announcement was supposed to arrive, I sat in my cramped studio apartment in Chicago's Logan Square, staring at my phone. The Hartwell Foundation Fellowship, named after my great-grandfather who'd built a pharmaceutical empire from nothing, was the most prestigious research grant in the biomedical field. $500,000, 3 years of funding, and a laboratory of your own. My brother Marcus had been preparing his application for 2 years. Dinners at my parents' Winnetka estate inevitably devolved into discussions of his groundbreaking work in cardiology. My mother would clasp her hands together and say, "When Marcus gets the fellowship. Never if, always when." I'd applied too, quietly, without mentioning it to anyone. My research focused on pediatric oncology, specifically developing less toxic chemotherapy protocols for children. It wasn't as flashy as Marcus's heart surgery innovations, but I'd spent 6 years watching kids lose their hair, their energy, their childhoods, to treatments that saved their lives but destroyed their quality of life. My phone buzzed. A text in the family group chat from my mother. "Fellowship announcement today, so proud of Marcus. Dinner at 7 to celebrate. Claire, try to be on time for once." They hadn't even waited for the official announcement. They'd already decided. When I'd graduated summa cum laude from Northwestern, my parents threw a celebration dinner that spent 45 minutes toasting Marcus's acceptance to Johns Hopkins and maybe 10 minutes acknowledging my achievement. When I'd published my first paper, my father had said, "That's nice, honey," before turning to Marcus to discuss his latest surgical technique. The mailman's footsteps echoed in the hallway. My heart pounded as I walked to the door. I pulled out the mail. Bills, a postcard from my dentist, and a heavy cream envelope with the Hartwell Foundation seal embossed in gold. My hands shook as I opened it. "Dear Dr. Claire Hartwell, it is our distinct honor to inform you." I had to read it 3 times. I'd won. The fellowship was mine. But the second paragraph made my breath catch. "Your application was unanimously selected by our board, with particular advocacy from board member Dr. Helena Hartwell, who cited your innovative approach to reducing treatment toxicity as exactly the kind of paradigm-shifting research the foundation was created to support." Dr. Helena Hartwell. My grandmother. The grandmother my parents had barely spoken to in 15 years. The grandmother who lived alone in her Gold Coast townhouse, who my mother called difficult, and my father called stuck in the past. The grandmother who'd been the only one to attend every single one of my research presentations, sitting quietly in the back row, never announcing herself. I sat on my apartment floor, the letter trembling in my hands, and realized that someone had been seeing me all along. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, leave a comment below, and subscribe to see how this revelation changed everything. I didn't tell anyone about the letter. Not yet. Instead, I drove to my parents' house that evening. The fellowship letter folded in my purse like a secret weapon. The house loomed at the end of the circular driveway, all white columns and perfectly manicured hedges. Inside, my mother had set the dining room table with the good china. Champagne chilled in an ice bucket. A cake sat on the sideboard decorated with "Congratulations, Marcus" in navy blue icing. "Claire," my mother air-kissed both my cheeks, "you're actually on time. Go say hello to your brother. Today's his day." Marcus stood by the fireplace, already holding court with my father and several family friends. He looked every inch the successful surgeon in his tailored suit, his confidence filling the room. "Claire Bear." He pulled me into a hug. "Big day for the Hartwell family legacy." My younger sister Vanessa appeared at my elbow, champagne in hand. Can you believe it? Marcus was so stressed, but we all knew he'd get it. Dinner was exactly what I'd expected. My father stood to make a toast. "To my son Marcus, who continues to make the Hartwell name synonymous with medical excellence. Your great-grandfather would be proud." Everyone raised their glasses. I lifted mine halfway, the champagne tasting bitter. My mother chimed in. "We always knew Marcus would be the one to carry on the family tradition. Some children are born to lead. Has anyone actually checked the mail today? I asked quietly. My father waved his hand dismissively. Marcus received his call this morning. I blinked. A call? Marcus nodded, grinning. Dr. Pemberton from the board rang me around 10, said they were impressed with my application and wanted to discuss fellowship terms. Something cold settled in my stomach. What exactly did he say? That they were moving forward with a Hartwell family candidate. Marcus took a long drink. Pretty clear what that means. Except it wasn't. I'd received the official letter. Did he specifically say you'd been selected? I pressed. My mother frowned. Claire, don't be difficult. Of course that's what it meant. Did you get a letter? I asked Marcus directly. His smile faltered. Not yet, but these things take time. They all stared at me like I was trying to rain on Marcus's parade. The old Claire would have backed down, apologized, let them have this moment. But the new Claire, the one with a fellowship letter in her purse and a grandmother who'd advocated for her in secret, felt something different rising in her chest. Actually, I said, setting down my champagne glass, I got a letter today. The table went quiet. That's nice, dear, my mother said. Did you apply for a hospital grant? Not a hospital grant. I reached into my purse and pulled out the cream envelope, setting it on the table. The Hartwell Foundation Fellowship. Marcus laughed uncertainly. You applied? Claire, that fellowship is for established researchers. No offense, but I have 9 publications, I interrupted. 3 as first author. And apparently the board found my work on reducing chemotherapy toxicity in pediatric patients to be exactly what they were looking for. My father's face went rigid. What are you saying? I unfolded the letter and read aloud. Dear Doctor, Claire Hartwell, it is our distinct honor to inform you that you have been selected as this year's recipient of the Hartwell Foundation Fellowship. The silence was absolute. That's impossible, my mother finally said. Marcus got the call. And I'm a Hartwell, I said softly. Believe it or not. What would you do in this moment? Comment below and subscribe for more real stories of overlooked achievements finally coming to light. Marcus snatched the letter from my hands, his eyes scanning the text. His face went through confusion, disbelief, then something darker. This doesn't make sense, he said. Dr. Pemberton called me specifically to discuss a different opportunity, probably, I said. The fellowship letter says I was unanimously selected. My father stood abruptly, his chair scraping. Helena, this has her fingerprints all over it. My mother's face cracked. She's on the board? She stepped down his chair but retained her board seat. My father said, anger tight in his voice. She's been lying low but apparently not inactive. The pieces clicked together. The way my grandmother had always quietly attended my presentations, the questions she'd ask afterward, probing and specific, the checks she'd send with notes about my important work. I hadn't realized she was watching, evaluating, advocating. She did this to spite us, my mother said. She's never forgiven us for choosing Marcus as the family representative last year. This is revenge. Or, I said, she chose me because my research is actually good. Marcus slammed the letter back onto the table. Your research is fine, Claire, but it's not fellowship-level work. Children's cancer treatments are already effective. You're just tinkering around the edges. My cardiac innovations could save thousands. Tinkering around the edges? The anger I'd swallowed for 28 years found its voice. I'm trying to make sure kids don't lose their hearing, their fertility, their organs to the treatments that save their lives. I'm trying to give them quality of life afterward. But sure, call it tinkering. Claire, don't be dramatic, my mother said, her hands shaking. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being accurate. I stood. You want to know the truth? I've been doing fellowship-level work for 6 years. I just did it quietly because every time I mentioned it, someone changed the subject to Marcus. I learned to stay small because there wasn't room for me in this family's spotlight. That's not fair, Vanessa protested. We've always supported you. You've always tolerated me, I corrected. There's a difference. My father's face turned red. If you'd had something worth celebrating, we would have celebrated it. But you chose pediatric oncology, a depressing field with limited commercial applications, over something with real impact. Limited commercial applications? I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. Children dying? That's what you're calling limited commercial applications? Even Marcus looked uncomfortable. I didn't mean it like that. My father backtracked. Yes, you did, I said. You meant exactly that. Because in this family, worth is measured in prestige and profit. Marcus's cardiac patients are CEOs and politicians. Mine are 5-year-olds with leukemia. And you've made it clear which ones matter more. I picked up the fellowship letter. Grandmother Helena apparently disagrees. And since she helped build the foundation that bears our name, I'm inclined to trust her judgment over yours. You can't accept this, my mother said desperately. Marcus has been preparing for years. His entire career trajectory depends on this. You can apply again next cycle. Why should I asked. So you can all spend another 3 years assuming he deserves it more? I walked toward the door. If you leave now, don't expect to be welcomed back, my father said coldly. I turned to look at him. I've been unwelcome in this house for a long time. I just didn't want to admit it. I walked out, leaving behind the cake with the wrong name, the flat champagne, and the family who'd never learned to see me. My phone rang as I reached my car. Unknown number. Dr. Hartwell? A warm, familiar voice. This is Helena. I heard the letters went out today. I pulled over 2 blocks away, hands shaking. Grandmother, I thought you might need someone to talk to, Helena said. I assume tonight's dinner didn't go well? How did you? I stopped. Of course she knew. They're furious. At me, at you, at the committee. Of course they are. I disrupted their narrative. I heard ice clinking in glass. Would you like to come over? I have excellent scotch and a story I think you need to hear. 20 minutes later, I sat in Helena's leather wingback chair, cut crystal glass in my hands, staring at my grandmother. At 83, she was still formidable. Silver hair in a sharp bob, intelligent eyes behind tortoiseshell glasses. I've been on the fellowship committee for 47 years, Helena began. I helped your great-grandfather design the selection criteria. The goal was never to simply hand money to Hartwell family members. It was to identify researchers who combined technical excellence with genuine compassion. People who saw medicine as a calling, not just a career. She sipped her scotch. Your father seems to have forgotten that. Dad's not on the committee? He stepped down 15 years ago after I blocked one of his preferred candidates. A cousin whose research showed promise, but whose treatment of lab staff was abhorrent. Helena's eyes glinted. Your father called me old-fashioned. We haven't been close since. I didn't know that. Your parents prefer to rewrite history. She set down her glass. I've attended every one of your research presentations for 6 years, Claire. Did you notice? I saw you, but I thought it was just familial obligation. Helena laughed. Obligation? Darling, I've sat through remarkably boring presentations out of obligation. Yours were never boring. Your work on platinum-based chemotherapy alternatives could revolutionize pediatric cancer treatment. You're not tinkering. You're redesigning the whole structure. Tears pricked my eyes. Marcus says... Marcus is a skilled surgeon with adequate research capabilities, Helena interrupted. Perfectly competent. But you, Claire? You're brilliant. There's a difference. Why didn't you ever say anything? Because if I made a fuss, your parents would dismiss it as favoritism. They already accused me of being soft on you. She leaned forward. I needed you to become undeniable on your own merits, and you did. Every committee member read your application blind. No names, no affiliations. The vote was unanimous before anyone knew which Hartwell submitted it. Marcus got a call this morning. About a teaching fellowship, Helena said. Perfectly respectable, but not the Hartwell Fellowship. Your brother jumped to conclusions, and my parents encouraged those conclusions. They saw what they wanted to see. Helena walked to her bookshelf, pulling down a leather album. I want to show you something. She opened it to a yellowed newspaper clipping from 1947. The headline read, Local Woman's Research Saves Soldiers' Lives. A young woman in a lab coat stared at a microscope with fierce concentration. That's you, I breathed. I developed a more effective anti-malarial protocol during World War II, Helena said. Saved thousands of soldiers. Your great-grandfather was so proud. He started the foundation in my honor initially, though family history books gloss over that detail. I saw my own nose, my own intense focus, reflected in this woman 70 years earlier. Your father resented that I never made him the center of my universe, Helena continued. So he tried to make Marcus the center of his. And in doing so, taught his sons that women exist to support, rather than lead. She closed the album. I knew Marcus would apply and assume he deserved it. That assumption is exactly what I hoped you'd disprove. You set this up, I realized. You wanted this conflict. I wanted you to claim what was yours, Helena corrected. The conflict was inevitable once you stopped accepting invisibility. Better to have it now, on your terms, with $500,000 already in your name. She was right. If I'd waited, made myself smaller, I'd still be the footnote. What do I do now? You accept the fellowship. You do the work you were meant to do. You change pediatric cancer treatment. Helena picked up her glass. And you let your parents decide whether they want to be part of your life or part of your past. 3 months later, I sat in my new laboratory at Northwestern Memorial, surrounded by equipment I'd only dreamed of accessing. The Hartwell Fellowship had given me space, funding, and freedom. My phone rang. Marcus. I'd been avoiding his calls, but something made me answer. Claire. His voice was tight. I need your help. With what? I have a patient, 7-year-old girl, successfully treated for leukemia 2 years ago. Now she's in heart failure from the chemotherapy. The anthracyclines destroyed her cardiac tissue. My chest tightened. This was exactly what my research addressed. I'm sending you her file, Marcus continued. I know you've been working on cardioprotective protocols. Is there anything that might help her? I pulled up the file. Emma Jimenez, 7 years old, cancer-free, but with an ejection fraction of 20%. Without intervention, she'd need a heart transplant she might not survive long enough to get. She was on your study's protocol, Marcus said quietly, but she was in the control group. She didn't get the protective agent. I closed my eyes. The nightmare scenario, knowing that different randomization might have spared her. Send me all her workups, I said. I have a potential intervention, but it's experimental. Claire, if you can help her. Marcus's voice cracked. Her parents are desperate. The transplant list is 18 months. She doesn't have 18 months. I worked through the night, pulling together everything about cardiac regenerative protocols, stem cell therapies, targeted interventions. By morning, I had a treatment plan that was ambitious, risky, and possibly Emma's only chance. The next day, I met with Emma's parents. Marcus sat quietly while I explained the protocol. Cellular therapy, careful drug titration, intensive monitoring. 3 months essentially living at the hospital. What are her chances? Emma's father asked. Honestly, I don't know. This has only been tested in animal models. I met his eyes. But those showed 40% improvement in cardiac function. That could be the difference between needing a transplant and having a functional heart. And if we do nothing, she'll need a transplant she may not survive to receive. They chose the treatment. I chose to make her my whole world. Emma was terrified of needles, loved unicorns, had memorized Hamilton. She called me Dr. Claire and asked if I was a princess because I worked in a castle. I spent 12-hour days at her bedside, monitoring every vital sign, celebrating every tiny improvement. Marcus came by often. One night, when Emma was finally sleeping, he spoke. You were right, he said quietly. At dinner, about quality of life mattering. I've been thinking about it. I looked up from Emma's chart. I save people's hearts, Marcus continued. You save their whole lives. There's a difference. Not quite an apology, but acknowledgement. I called grandmother, he said. After that dinner. I was angry, wanted her to explain why she chose you over me. What did she say? That she didn't choose you over me. She chose the better researcher, and I needed to decide whether my ego or my integrity mattered more. He smiled ruefully. She's terrifying when she's right. She usually is. I'm sorry, Marcus said finally, for assuming, for making you invisible, for being so focused on my achievement that I never saw yours. I nodded. Too long in coming, not enough, but a beginning. 12 weeks later, Emma's ejection fraction had improved to 45%. Not normal, but functional. Enough to go home, ride her bike, be a kid. The day of her discharge, she gave me a drawing. A stick figure princess with a crown and stethoscope, standing next to a unicorn with a heart on its chest. That's you, Emma explained, fixing hearts like a princess. I pinned it to my office wall, right next to my fellowship certificate. My parents sent a card at Thanksgiving. Formal, pre-printed, with my mother's handwriting. We hope you're well. The house feels empty without you. Not an apology, just a statement of their loss. I spent Thanksgiving at Helena's townhouse. She made her famous herb-roasted turkey, and we ate surrounded by decades of family photographs. "Are you going to respond?" Helena asked. "I don't know. Part of me wants to. Part of me thinks they need to try harder." "Both parts are correct," Helena said. "That's the challenge of loving people who've hurt you. The feelings coexist." My phone buzzed. Marcus. "Missing you, sis." Vanessa, drunk texting. "Mom's crying, come home." Then an unknown number. "Dr. Hartwell, this is Emma's mom. Emma wanted you to know she's cartwheeling in the backyard. Thank you for giving her that chance. Happy Thanksgiving." I showed Helena the message. She smiled. "That," she said, "is what the fellowship is for. Not prestige, not legacy. That exact moment, a child doing cartwheels because you cared enough to try." I thought about my broken family, Marcus's tentative overtures, Vanessa's confusion. But Emma was doing cartwheels, and somewhere, other children would benefit from my research. "I'm going to write them back," I said slowly. "Not because I forgive everything, but because I don't want bitterness to win." "Good," Helena said, "though I suggest you let them do more work before Christmas." I laughed. "Agreed." That evening, I drafted a response. "Mom and Dad, I'm glad to hear from you, but a card isn't an apology. If you want me back, I need you to understand why I left. I need you to see me, really see me, not as the daughter who isn't Marcus, but as the researcher doing work that matters. If you can do that, we can talk. If you can't, I understand. But I'm not making myself smaller anymore. Love, Claire." I sent it before I could second guess. 3 days later, my father called. "Your mother and I would like to meet," he said stiffly. "Somewhere neutral. To talk." "Just talk?" "To listen," he corrected, and the admission felt like a crack in our old dynamic. We met at a coffee shop in Evanston. My parents looked older. My mother's hair grayer, my father's shoulders more stooped. "Helena sent us your recent publication," my mother said, "about cardiac protection protocols. She made us read it. Every word. She called it mandatory education," my father added with a ghost of a smile. "The little girl, Emma," my mother continued. "Helena told us about her, about how you saved her life. I gave her a chance," I corrected. "The treatment might not have worked." "But it did," my father said. And Helena made sure we understood what that meant. She was quite thorough in explaining how we'd failed to see what was important. I sipped my coffee, letting them sit with discomfort. "We're proud of you," my mother said, voice cracking. "We should have said that 8 months ago, or 6 years ago, or every time you came home with an achievement we dismissed." "Marcus isn't the only child who made us proud," my father added. "He's just the one we made room for. That was wrong. Not a perfect apology, but a beginning." "I need time," I told them. "I need to see that this isn't just words because Helena forced you to read my publication." They nodded, accepting the boundary. "Your fellowship presentation is next month," my father said, "at the foundation gala." "I'll be there," I said. "So will we," my mother said, "if you'll have us." I thought about Emma, about my research, about the life I'd built that didn't require their approval. "I'll have you," I said finally. "But as guests, not as the family who assumes they belong in the spotlight. This is my achievement, mine alone." "We understand," my father said. Whether they truly did remained to be seen, but I'd learned I could survive without their understanding. And that knowledge was the most powerful thing I could have. The Hartwell Foundation Gala was held at the Four Seasons, the ballroom glittering with Chicago's medical elite. I wore a navy dress Helena had insisted on buying. No granddaughter of mine is wearing Target to her fellowship presentation, and clutched my note cards. Helena sat at the head table, regal in burgundy silk. Marcus was there, genuinely smiling. Vanessa had flown in from Los Angeles, sober and attentive. My parents sat 3 rows back, not at the family table, but present. Emma and her parents sat in the second row, Emma in a unicorn dress with a huge grin. I stood at the podium, looking out at faces of people who'd spent years not seeing me, and a few who always had. "When I applied for this fellowship," I began, "I didn't tell anyone. I'd learned that in my family, ambition was something to be managed, not celebrated. I'd learned to make my achievements small enough not to threaten anyone's spotlight." I saw my mother dab at her eyes. But my grandmother, Dr. Helena Hartwell, saw something different. She saw that my research mattered. Not because it was flashy or prestigious, but because it gave children like Emma Jimenez a chance at a full life, not just survival. Emma waved. I waved back. This fellowship isn't just funding. It's validation that work done in quiet corners of children's hospitals, work that doesn't make headlines, is still work that changes the world. It's recognition that sometimes the most important advances aren't the ones that save the most lives, but the ones that make saved lives worth living. I looked at Helena, who nodded once. Thank you to the Hartwell Foundation for seeing that. Thank you to my grandmother for teaching me that being overlooked doesn't mean being worthless. And thank you to every researcher who's been told their work didn't matter enough. We know the truth. The patients we serve know the truth. And eventually, everyone else catches up. The applause was thunderous. Emma stood on her chair, clapping so hard her unicorn headband fell off. After the ceremony, my family approached cautiously. You were magnificent, my mother said, the pride finally sounding genuine. Your presentation was compelling, my father added. I understand now. What you've been trying to tell us. Marcus hugged me. Told you that you were brilliant. No, I corrected gently. You told me I was adequate. Grandmother told me I was brilliant. There's a difference. He nodded, accepting the correction. Helena appeared at my elbow. Well done, Dr. Hartwell, she said formally, then quieter. Your great-grandfather would have been proud. I certainly am. Thank you, I said, meaning it in ways that encompassed years of quiet support, of showing up, of advocating when I didn't know I needed an advocate. Thank you for seeing me, I added. My dear, Helena said, squeezing my hand. You were never invisible. You were just surrounded by people who refused to look. That night, I pinned my fellowship certificate on the wall next to Emma's drawing. The stick figure princess with the stethoscope, fixing hearts. My phone buzzed with messages. Colleagues congratulating me, former classmates. A long text from Vanessa about how proud she was and how she'd never realized how I'd been treated. And one from Marcus. I talked to Helena. She told me about her malarial research, about how Dad resented her success. I think we inherited his fear of strong women. I'm working on it. Progress. Slow, imperfect, but real. The fellowship would fund 3 years of research. 3 years of developing better protocols, saving more children like Emma, proving that overlooked didn't mean unimportant. But more than that, it had shown me something crucial. That being seen by the right person matters more than being celebrated by everyone. That sometimes the person who sees your worth isn't the one you expected. That families can be broken and reformed, relationships rebuilt on new foundations. And that the honor you earn yourself, the recognition you fight for, the space you claim, those are worth more than anything handed to you by people who never understood your value in the first place. I was Dr. Claire Hartwell, pediatric oncology researcher, Hartwell Foundation Fellow, and the granddaughter of a woman who'd understood from the beginning what it meant to be brilliant in a family that preferred women to be quiet. I was no longer invisible. I was no longer a footnote. I was finally, completely, undeniably seen. Thank you for reading Claire's story. If this resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel for more real stories of overlooked achievements, family reconciliation, and the moment everything changes. Drop a comment telling us about a time you felt invisible in your own family. And remember, being overlooked doesn't mean being worthless. Sometimes it just means you're surrounded by people who refuse to look.